Tommy Fleetwood is one of the best ball strikers in the game of golf at the minute. He has a quite unique swing to himself, but it definitely works. We're going to go through an in-depth analysis of Tommy's swing, what works and what's quite unique to him. So if we look from down the line, the first thing we'll notice about Tommy is he's very kyphotic or hunched over at setup. He's not that traditional Adam Scott bolt upright sort of position. Now, it could be that Tommy's a little bit tight through that T-spine, and that causes him to be in more of that rounded posture. Now, I'd suggest it's something physical because he does walk in that way where he is more rounded through his spine, rather than it being a technical issue where he just sets up in a more kyphotic posture. If you watch Tommy, he is naturally in that posture when he's upright, so it suggests it's something physical. And that will definitely affect the way that he swings the golf club, which we'll see as we move him through backswing. And what we're going to do is place a line on the right butt cheek and then a line on his head and the peak of his cap. And then we'll do the same for the face-on view just there. So as we move Tommy back in to takeaway, you'll see a very traditional position here. It's very one piece. That club face is parallel to his back line and that shaft is outside his hands. It's a very traditional move that a lot of guys would love to copy and love to emulate. But if you can see, that peak of his cap just moves subtly, very subtly towards the ball on that takeaway. If we look from face on, let's just draw that line more on his head. You'll see he'll start to rotate his head and bump those hips a little bit to the right. See that move, that subtle move? That movement of the head helps rotate around the spine, and that movement into that right side before we start to see the hips move back facilitates some hip rotation and some loading of the tissues into backswing. So it's a very textbook position. Love it a lot. Like I said, a lot of guys would love to emulate that. And this is the next part of the swing, is where we see some uniqueness with Tommy that you don't see with most guys on tour. So let's bring him back to sort of halfway back, and you'll see as he's moving back, that head's moving closer to the ball and that pelvis is moving also closer to the ball, something commonly known as early extension. Can you see that? Look at that right butt cheek, how it moves about an inch closer to the ball as his head moves closer to the ball here. You'll see a lot of guys where that right hip actually moves behind that line. Tommy's not one of those guys. Usually that occurs when somebody's tight through the hips, or in Tommy's case it looks like he's tight through his T-spine. So if we bring him on the face on view, you'll see there he starts to get a little bit of wrist set and really loads into that trail side. So it's still a lovely position, but he just moves a little bit closer, as we said. So if we bring him up to the top of the swing, you'll see he continues as he rotates. Again, you see he continues to get closer to the ball as he's rotating, which again suggests he's limited through probably that T-spine or right hip, which doesn't allow him to rotate in the more conventional PGA Tour manner. But take that aside, just if we took the lines off, you can see it's a very sort of textbook position. Nice structure in that right arm, a little bit of extension through the lead wrist. That club face is pretty much square to his lead arm. Let's just get rid of those lines because it's looking a little bit messy. Just a very textbook position. If we bring him face on, you'll see it's really nice and loaded through that hip. He's got that spine over the right side. Very powerful position. Now what we'll see in transition, I love Tommy's transition and how he creates speed and power. It's very powerful. I do think there's potential that he could have some back injuries with the way he moves, but let's just look at the positives for now. So what we'll see is Tommy's going to really load through that left side and get that knee working out. He's going to move down through the pelvis, down through the rib cage, and really increase that angle in the wrist. So watch this. There, can you see that move with the left knee down? That hip moves down, center of the rib cage moves down, and then look at that angle. That angle starts to increase as he moves down. That's a tremendous way of creating speed and lag. You can see there, look at that powerful position there of that angle of the wrist. Creates a stretch shortening cycle around the wrist, around that lead shoulder, which we'll talk more about on the down the line view, because what's happening is that center of the rib cage is rotating almost as that lead arm stays in place. That creates a tremendous stretch along that scap, that lead scapula. Can you see how the arm doesn't almost move, but that center of the rib cage moves down and starts to rotate? So what he's doing is he's creating a tremendous amount of stretch in that lead scapula that then has to be released at some point. And what it also does is it helps shallow the club. So look, boom, starts to shallow the club. That trail arm starts to work internally and get some nice shallowing, moves that lead wrist more into flexion. You can see that subtle little movement, and then he really compresses through the abdomen and really gets that angle closer. TPI call it like plugging in the power. You'll see a lot of guys that have a very powerful move, how that abdomen or rib cage and knees almost increase in angle in the downswing. It's very, very powerful movement, that squat position. But what you'll also see, get rid of those lines, is look how much height Tommy loses from the top of his backswing to sort of lead arm parallel. Look at that. Loses a tremendous amount of height. If I bring it on the face on view, watch, lead arm parallel. Look how much height he loses. He's really driving through the legs and really rotating nicely, but he's lost a lot of height. Now, in order to get that back, he'll start to really sort of side bend, as you can see in the face on view. You can see that side bend, and you'll really see it as he starts to move further down in downswing. So let's bring him a couple more frames. You can see how he's getting that right side quite compressed. Let's have a look on through. Give a couple more frames down. You can see how he's very sort of compressed through that trail side. Could be potential that he gets some issues around his back in the future. Hopefully not, because you never want to see a guy injured. But let's bring him down a couple more frames, and you can really see again that compression through that right side and how much that head, watch that head as well. Watch how it sort of backs up and he starts to tilt that head. Now, I actually think that's quite a healthy move for Tommy, because as he's rotating his neck with the rotation of his body, so I really like that. Keeping your head down is one of the worst things in golf. Look at the angle though. Look how much power he's creating through maintaining that angle. Let's get rid of those lines. And you'll see, bring him down. Boom. Bring him down with the face on. Similar sort of position. But you can see here how that right arm is very much behind the right shoulder. Again, that can create some issues around that right shoulder with some of the forces dissipating. Probably not the healthiest move, but I think Tommy does that because of some limitations around the spine. You can see how curved he is and how much that head is down. I really hope that he doesn't have any injuries, but this swing doesn't look like it'll stand the test of time. Hopefully I'm completely wrong though. Let's have a look. It'll then really stretch through impact. You'll see that head stays down, starts to move down. You can see how he keeps that head really flexed through impact. Let's bring it through. Keeping it down, 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 down. And that's what creates that funky sort of look with Tommy, that there is quite a lot of head movement in the swing, just because the amount of down and flexion in that head through and how long he keeps that head down for. But I mean, what a what a great swing though. I mean, you can look at impact. Look how pure that is. Nice. I mean, we can't quite get the right frame, but nice bit of shaft lean. Just love that. That's why he's such a consistent driver and iron player. So if we bring him right through, he'll really stretch out. And this is, again, quite unique to Tommy about how short that follow through is with the irons. It's something that originated that he did with his coach, where he did some what we call windmill swings, where he's just keeping his, he used to swing sort of from here, keeping his arms straight, and then swing through and keeping those arms straight all the way through. And he's just kept that drill for his irons, and he is one of the straightest and purest iron players on tour. So it's something that works for him. You'll notice he doesn't do it with driver, but again, Tommy's using what he knows best for his game. He's not a swing that you'd copy at all because he is a unicorn. You know, it works for him. And that's what you find with most guys on tour. They're maybe not the most technically perfect, but they use something that works for them. And that's something that you can learn from your own experience. We've all got different bodies, and Tommy does that perfectly. Like I say, that address position, some issues probably around that spine, and he swings in a unique way for his body, and that's what's all we've got to do. That's why everybody swings very differently. I love Tommy's swing. Hopefully he doesn't get injured, and hopefully I am completely wrong.